which is a weekly podcast. So it's a live recording, so you'll hear the sound blend, the IDs and everything that we'll use. And then Ricardo, it'll introduce Ricardo. There's a voiceover guy that does it. It'll introduce Ricardo, and then Ricardo will take from there, yeah?
Okay.
Just good, okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good grief, wherever you are. It's an Agile Coaching Mastery podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Agile Coaching Mastery podcast, brought to you by the Agile Coaching Mastery crew. Our crew consists of Agile coaches from around the world who record the podcast for an international audience free of time zones. You can listen when you want. We do this to help increase the skills, knowledge, and experience across the Agile coaching industry, and it's for free. Every week, we'll be exploring another part of this wonderful Agile coaching landscape, and each episode is recorded live and unscripted on Friday. Let's join the crew for this week's episode. This week's host is Ricardo.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. Today, we're starting a new series where we're going to invite expert speakers, people recognized by the community as having made significant contributions. And who better to start with than with Sunil Mundra, the author of the Enterprise Agility book, which we all use and we all love.
Yay, great book.
Sunil, yeah, fantastic.
I thank you very much for having me. Ricardo, your voice is a bit soft. Can I request you to sort of somehow make sure that we can hear you a little bit louder, please?
Is it better now?
Yes, it's better now. Thank you.
Yes. So, Sunil, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us how you started on your Agile Mastery journey?
Okay, so my name is Sunil Mundra. I have a total of 31 years of experience, of which 20 years is in the IT industry. I have been with ThoughtWorks Technologies for 11 years now. And this is where I started my journey as an Agile enabler, Agile consultant, Agile coach, whatever name you want to give it. And my journey started because I joined ThoughtWorks as part of the consulting team in India. And I essentially was hired because of the passion they saw for solving complex problems for clients. And that was the only criteria based on which I got hired. I said I had never even heard of the word Agile or Lean in the context of IT before joining ThoughtWorks. And I'm like, I don't even know what domain you are in other than the name itself. And they said, you learn it. It's not rocket science. And from the time that I joined, and within 8 years to publish a book on enterprise agility, which was a new release bestseller in 2 categories, right? It's all because of the experience that I have got within ThoughtWorks. I work for an organization which itself is having high agility and works on agile ways of working, delivers ways on agile ways of working, and also getting the opportunities to consult with our clients across the globe on improving their agility and working for them to help them on their agile adoption and agile transformation journeys. So that's really been my journey with respect to understanding and learning about agility and the coaching journey as well.
Fantastic. And it's interesting that you got hired due to understanding so much complex problems, because the thing that struck me the most in your book was the fantastic explanation of complex adaptive systems. So those two things are definitely connected. Complex adaptive systems have complex problems. Can you tell our audience a little bit what is a CAS? What is a complex adaptive system, and why does it matter?
Right. So complex adaptive systems is a living system. It's a system which is capable of evolution. So you look at any socio-economic system or any living organism, all of these can be categorized as complex adaptive systems. And there are many characteristics of CAS but the primary one is that it is able to evolve organically, keeping in view the changes which are happening in the external environment. So it adapts itself to the external environment and evolves. And that to me is a core property of a complex adaptive system. There are many others, and that's why I had to devote a whole chapter to explain what that is all about, and that's still not enough. I am myself scratching the surface of the concept of CAS. It's such a deep subject, but what I felt relevant is that organizations or enterprises were and are CAS. Unfortunately, in many cases, they have been wrongly modeled as closed-ended or mechanistic systems. And my contention and my premise is that if organizations are to deal with fast-paced change, they need to be modeled as CAS, because only when you are modeled as CAS are you capable of adapting to the external environment and to evolve yourself.
Fantastic. Ian, do you want to pop in?
Yeah, sure. I think this area, by the way, if I might say, is the real missing link for coaches. That they think the systems thinking is there, but the idea of complex adaptive systems and needing to observe and understand what happens. And I thought your point about systems capable of evolution was really a superb definition of what complex adaptive systems are. And you've really helped me over the last few weeks as we've talked to really get this into my head as well. And I think it's honestly the missing link for lots of coaches and leaders, I would say, that they feel, you're getting into the category of Cynefin and complexity versus complicated as well, of course. And
Exactly. That's the core point, Ian, that, complexity and complicatedness are being used as synonyms. There is very little awareness that I see among coaches and among leaders about this not so subtle distinction between, these two contexts or situations, but that difference is not well understood, and these two words are used normally as synonyms. And that is where I think the real problem lies as coaches and as leaders, that when you approach a complex system with a complicated approach, that's when things are likely to go wrong. I mean, I don't want to get into the Cynefin framework, but if you just look at the summary in which how a situation needs to be approached, a complicated situation has 3 steps like sense, analyze, and respond. Whereas for a complex situation, it is probe, sense, and then respond. There is a huge difference there. So the best analogy that I want to give for coaches, because I think as coaches, we are like doctors of organizations. Just the way doctors look at human beings, because human beings are also complex adaptive systems. If you go to a doctor with a problem, unless they do enough probing to understand what the root cause is, then they try to make sense of that, and then they try to respond to you with a treatment. And I think agile coaches need to take a similar approach with organizations. I don't think we do enough probing before suggesting something. I also don't think that there is always going to be a black and white solution in a complex situation. That might work for a complicated situation, but not in a complex situation. One of my favorite statements I make is that every intervention in a complex situation is a hypothesis. There is no 100% guarantee that something which has worked in the past will work exactly, because every complex system in some form or the other is different from the other entity. So I think understanding these basic facts will help coaches and leaders alike.
Yeah, and I think another thing, Raz, I'm going to ask you in a second to come and talk, but I think this brings out another problem in coaching, which is a lot of coaches still feel they are subject matter experts and want to give solutions. And as you said, it's just like the doctor going, trust me, I'm the doctor, this is what you need to do, it's always what you need to do, I've been here so often, this is what you need to do, instead of, as you said, probe. And so I guess that's the thing, that the insight that really came out from me when I read your book was moving away from feeling that coaching is about subject matter expertise and coaching is more like being a doctor. That was a great phrase.
Exactly. So the doctor also has subject matter expertise, right?
Yes, he does. Yes, but it's not his base. Yeah.
Exactly. But the doctor, the approach that the doctor takes. I mean, can you ask any doctor to put in paper and writing how long a person will live, or whether their treatment will work exactly as they recommend? Nobody can give you in writing, right? This is because complex adaptive systems have emergent and unpredictable behaviors. And that's a property that we need to understand, that we have to build on emergence. We cannot do a copy paste, or we cannot, build a detailed plan and just follow it through without taking cognizance of what is emerging. So I think these are the things which coaches actually need to understand better. And I think one of the things which coaches can definitely do is start educating leaders about the difference between complex and complicated. And I think, to me, in my own experience, leaders have had a huge aha moment when they understand that difference.
Yes, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Raz, Raz, are you there? Can we hear you?
Yep, I'm here. So, I was enjoying the conversation, and the whole subject, the topic of complexity and complex adaptive systems is very close to my heart. And I think it's a very good segue to my question that you mentioned, Sunil, is what would be the best approach from your point of view, educating and uplifting the leadership's knowledge on complex adaptive system, and how the decision they're making has impact on the entire system and the people living in the system and interacting with the boundary and co-defining the emergent boundaries that they're living in the system. So what would be your suggestion where our coaches can start from? Start with?
I think we have to always start, when you're looking at leadership, to see what is hurting the organization, or what is stopping them from being an effective leader as much as they would like to be, right? Many of these factors obviously would be systemic in nature, but the important factor is how do we approach a problem. And I think if we can demonstrate by understanding some of the problems they've had in the past and how they have tried to approach them, right? You will often find patterns that a complex situation has been approached like a complicated one. And that's where you have to build your awareness program or an awareness session around their context, that this was the problem, this is how you approached it, which you might want to think about, given that the difference between complex and complicated is critical. And if you had understood the difference correctly, maybe you would have approached the problem in this way. So one of the common examples that we see is in a complicated system, right? It's about hiring the expert to find a solution, and you just trust the expert to find a solution and they can do it, right? Whereas in a complex adaptive system, it's all about emergence. Yes, you need expertise, but there will be situations where even the expert is, facing a situation which is unprecedented. So what we see in agile transformations, hire some people with certifications, agile coaches with certifications, and they will get a transformation done. That's exactly the wrong way to do it. That's exactly how a complicated situation is approached, or rather a complex situation is approached with a complicated mindset. So if we can demonstrate to leadership with some examples from their own context in terms of how they have handled some of the problems, or whatever problem they are facing, how they would handle it, and if we can see that disconnect between understanding complicated and complex, then the coach can call it out. So that's the approach that I would take, is to contextualize it to the problems that they are facing. Otherwise, it's just theory. It won't resonate easily.
So we see. Do you mind if I ask a question? We see lots of leaders who don't get complicated. We see lots of leaders who have almost an emotional, shall I say it like that, and a social DNA of, I'm the boss, I'm the expert. I know you've said before, almost, I think the phrase you might not have used, but I've summarised in some notes earlier, was blame the school systems. Can you elaborate on that? I know, I think you've said several times in other sessions and things, we don't bring leaders up to think this way now, do we?
Exactly. The whole route, starts with our education system, where we are taught to solve complicated problems rather than complex ones, right? We are always looking for that one right answer. We are always looking for that one approach. We are always looking to the teacher who knows the best answer, and that cannot be challenged. And our engineering education is also largely based on solving complicated problems, which is all right. But I think the only profession where you are taught to deal with complexity is the medical doctor profession. That's where you are actually taught to deal with complexity. But if you look at any other degrees which relate to any other discipline other than medicine, it's all about looking at complicated situations. Maybe the liberal arts stream might think differently. I am not an arts graduate, so I can't comment on that. But if you look at traditional education, this is where the problem is, that we are trained from childhood to solve only complicated problems and not complex ones.
Yeah. We have on stage in Clubhouse with us Michael. Hi, Michael. Do you have any question for Sunil?
I do. I really enjoyed the conversation, and there's one thing that's sticking with me throughout, which is, Sunil, do you think we have the patience for complexity at the moment? Because it seems like the rush for an answer, or the requirement to give an answer to show your expertise in something, outweighs the requirement to probe further, as you mentioned before.
Well, I think your point about patience is well taken. Today execs are in a hurry to declare agile adoption and agile transformations as done. Something which can take years. You have a target to finish, and a company sets a target saying, we will, finish our agile transformation in 12 months, 18 months. It's like, again, giving the human body analogy. Can you put a date and say, by this date, I am going to be healthy, right? Or by this date, I will definitely achieve, whatever health goals have set out to be. Sure, it's a good target to have, but I think the point is, you can never be sure about how the organization or your body is going to respond. So I think for me, it's not about reaching an ideal state that you are 100% done. There is no black and white in this journey. Having agility in an organization is a journey. It's like having good health. You can never have enough of it. There's always room to improve something, right? And I think as long as you are on that journey, as long as you have made significant improvements to your outcomes from where you started, and directionally you know where you are going, you have your leading indicators which are telling you that you have high agility and that you are able to sustain it. Of course, there will always be room to improve. That is the way I think to look at the journey, rather than say, I have a milestone and I don't have the patience until I reach that milestone. You can start making small improvements and see successes at lower levels, which you can then amplify going forward. So for leaders who are obsessed with a milestone and not having patience to reach that milestone, I would say that it's a journey where you can start creating small successes within a very, very short period of time and then amplify those across the organization. Does that answer your question, Michael?
It does, yeah. I think it's an observation beyond leaders as well. I just think as a collection of people at the minute, I think we're all very used to having instant sort of recognition or gratification or outcomes given to us just through our daily lives as well. So when it comes to something that deals with complexity, it's so alien to us now.
It is. That is why it is important to set, smaller milestones, right? And as we try a few things, some things will work, some things will not work. How can you have the agility to stop things which are not working? How do you even know that they are not working quickly and take action fast enough to stop them? And then look at things which are working for you and double down on those, which are working. So I think to me, looking at these things, and it's the process of, building your capabilities to sense, adapt, and respond. Right. From my perspective, these are the three core capabilities of agility. And, I think every complex adaptive systems has these three core capabilities, and you can always improve on them. So I think you need to look out for building on these capabilities. And if you can do that, for example, you can say, okay, what is the decision time to make a next decision, right? Suppose the common example given is if you want to change a font on your company's website, how long would that take? Right? For a developer, it's a 5-minute job to do it, right? But it can take him months, for an organization to put it through. So what does that talk about your organization in terms of agility? If you can improve on those kind of decision cycles, if you can improve upon, your feedback loops, how fast are they, or how quickly can you gather feedback and can you act on them? So I think those are indicators which you need to look out for. To see whether there is an improvement in those and then take those forward. I think to me, as long as directionally you are going in the right direction, to me, speed is secondary to direction, because if you're going in the wrong direction, your speed is actually taking you away, from your goal further. So as long as in a complex system, you are moving in the right direction, speed to me is secondary. The direction is more important than speed.
Sunil, can I ask one I'm going to add? Yeah, go on. I can ask a question, Ricardo, if you don't have any question. Can I?
I do, but you can ask one.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on the intervention, Sunil, that you mentioned earlier. As a coach, and coaching intervention, what kind of skill a coach need to possess, agile coach need to possess, or what need to consider when designing such an intervention to come up with a solution or highlight a problem in the system, in the complex adaptive system, in agile transformation per se, just let's say. So what are those things from your point of view?
Again, similar to a doctor, right? You know that there are patterns of things that work across your patients, right? And you know that if this patient is of this profile, based on your experience of the past, you believe that this intervention, based on your past experience, is likely to work. And I underline the word likely. There is absolutely no guarantee. And I think that is where you need to start. You need to start with something which does not disrupt the whole system in a big bang way. You need to start with something. For example, if there is a very highly obese person, right? You cannot put that person on a training which you give to an Olympic athlete or to a sports athlete. That person might die, right? So you have to look at appetite for change. You have to look at patterns which have worked in similar situations and try it out. And if it doesn't work, you need to know soon enough to watch out for signals that it is not working, and then adapt appropriately. But I think the key point is, one is patterns, and second, to see what is the appetite for change. How much can you push, the change at that moment in time, and also to know whether the change is working or not. But the key mindset that is needed is, after all, it's an intervention, it's an experiment, and therefore there is no guarantee. So, but you have to rely on your experience, your knowledge as well as your experience to see what is the pattern or what is the intervention which you have seen work in the past in similar situations, not exactly the same situation, that is likely to work in this situation.
Yeah. Picking up from your previous one, I'm really going to write that one down on my book, that speed is secondary to direction, because higher speed will actually be taking you away from where you should be.
It was gorgeous, that quote. I've also got it in my book ready to use.
Thank you so much, folks. Means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, but that takes me to chapter 14 of your book, where actually one thing that touched me there is that to embrace true agility in an organization, we might actually have to redefine the purpose of the organization.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit more about that?
I think in everything that we do, the why becomes very important, right? So understanding the why of a system, is to me critical to define the what and the how of it. Because if your why is not aligned with the what and the how, or the what and the how are not aligned with the why, then you are not going to be able to achieve your purpose properly. The importance of purpose today in a complex adaptive system is this, right? A complex adaptive system lives within an ecosystem of an environment. Okay, so earlier organizations would say that, oh, we are sitting on this side of the table, everybody else is on the other side, right? So organizations' purpose, and still many organizations believe in this. And when 30 plus years ago, when I did my MBA, I was taught this. The sole purpose an organization exists is to maximize shareholder wealth. Right? There was no customer there. There was nothing, right? It was all about maximizing shareholder wealth. Shareholders have put the money in the business, and it is imperative that they be given the highest priority because they have invested in the business. That was a fundamental belief which was, brought out by some people in the late 70s. It was not there before that, by the way. It was a new phenomenon. It lasted for a few years, and now people are realizing how foolish that is to follow. So my belief is that organizations are part of an ecosystem, and your ecosystem consists of customers, suppliers, vendor partners, the community at large, government, and any other agency that you need to deal with. And to me, a purpose has to be something where you are thinking of a win-win situation for everyone. Yeah, that is the only way that you will be able to be in touch with your environment and evolve with the changes in the environment. If you are going to be isolating yourself from the environment by saying, no, I will focus only on one stakeholder and the rest are there for me to exploit, for the purpose of making that one stakeholder happy, you are taking yourself away far from the environment, and you are putting a risk to your evolution and therefore to your survival.
Fantastic. And we have two members of the audience on stage. Igor, do you have a question you would like to ask?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Igor. Hello.
Thanks for having me. So my question will be, what are the, let's say, difference between a mature Scrum Master and an Agile coach, if we are talking about changing the organization?
I think the basic capabilities in those roles remain the same, right? In many organizations, Scrum Masters are there who are focused only at the team level. They are focused within one team. But Agile coaches are people who work, slightly at a higher level, which is across teams, right? So you can have Agile coaches who work across multiple teams, who work at program level, and who work at enterprise level, and who work at leadership level. So there could be, again, multiple levels of coaching which is there. However, Scrum Master is a role which, as we all know, is focused on a single team, to be there. But for me, there are a lot of commonalities because they are both enablers, and they are both focused on improving a complex system. It's just that the scope of that system or the complexity of that system may be limited because you're working with one team, or if you're working at an organization level, the complexity is much higher. So it's all about the scope and the scale that a coach versus a Scrum Master needs to deal with.
And I would have observed that the more you're higher up in the organisation, your subjects start to differ. You're suddenly talking a little bit more about vision, focus, compelling strategies, organisational designs. It's a slightly different sort of knowledge set. Would that be fair, Sunil? I don't know if you'd agree with that, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree with that. The levels of complexity are very, very different, right? So you are dealing with far more issues which you may not be dealing at the team level, like, for example, org design. That may not matter as much, at a team level, because within a team your structure is pretty limited. So that's a good example of I would say finer dimensions of complexity which will show up as you move up to take a broader view of the organization.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah.
And you have
We've
Andrew.
got Grant here. Grant's a CEO of an organisation. He's just joined the conversation, and I'm quite pissed, but I'm going to invite him up to the stage because he is a smart man.
Okay, so let me introduce Andrew Bain, remote AF from Australia, is on the call with us as well, and he's just introduced Grant to CEO. So, Andrew, welcome, and by all means, introduce your friend and ask some quick questions.
Grant, how have you done with running a remote organisation these days?
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm quite pissed. It's lockdown number 5, mate. I'm over it. I'm over it.
You can do that remotely, or you can do that in person. I think we thought we knew a lot about it, and then we tried it, and we realised we had a lot to learn. So we were lucky that we already had the infrastructure and the tools set up to be able to transition easily from that perspective, but that's not really what made it work. And a lot of the iteration was just around the things that you lose, and the idea of sharing around the water cooler and just those casual interactions that really make you feel like you're part of a team and build that sense of belonging, that they just happen when you have the right team in person and in the office, and you just build those bonds. But when you don't, and you're trying to do something that's creative and innovative, we really had to consciously and deliberately focus on creating those connections. And that was quite a learning curve. I don't think we did a very good job at the start, and I still think we've got a lot of room to improve in that area. But we basically copy and paste in-person working into a remote setting. And that was what was really lacking and what we really focused on in the last 6 to 9 months. And as you know, Andrew, having helped us out and shared a lot of ideas along the journey with yourself.
So, Grant, this is Ian. I don't think we met, but do you recognise what Sunil is talking about as the complex adaptive system problem and all of that? And do you have anything you'd like to ask Sunil? He's our expert speaker today.
I just jumped in about a minute and a half ago, so I apologise. I missed what Sunil was saying.
Oh, okay. Well, we can move on to who else? Someone else has just joined, I think.
Yeah, we have a few more raised hands. But Sunil, that takes me back to your book. What Andrew and Grant were discussing was about the left field that was COVID and having to all go work remotely and have the whole complex adaptive system adapt to not being face-to-face. Would you have written anything differently if you had written the book today instead of a few years ago around this area?
Yeah, I think I definitely would highlight the additional complexity which COVID would have brought upon as an example of how unpredictable something can be, for which you can never predict in advance. But the organizations which are doing well with COVID are those organizations which are doing well or have these 3 capabilities at a mature level, which is the ability to sense, adapt, and respond. I think if you look at all organizations who have done well in situations of challenges thrown by COVID, are the ones which are showing a greater level of agility, that is more maturity in terms of their ability to sense, adapt, and respond. So I would use COVID as an example of something which a complex adaptive system could never foresee, but now has to deal with, and how best they can deal with is what will determine their success, going forward. So yeah.
Yeah. So we're a 30-minute podcast, and today we're opening an exception and making it a 33-minute podcast. But this was fantastic. It's always fantastic to interact with you, Sunil. You're someone that we look up to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It was an enjoyable conversation for me as well. And I hope it was, it gave some additional insights to people who are listening to this podcast as well.
So, Sunil, if people want to get more of your insights and stuff, I can recommend, obviously, Enterprise Agility, Being Agile in a Changing World, Sunil's book, which you can get from all good sources, and maybe some bad ones as well, but certainly there. But you also, I've seen your name on many a sort of digital conference, etc. So if people Google your name, Mundra, Mundra, Sunil Mundra, they'll no doubt find you as well. We sort of need to finish, I think, unless there's anything else we should add. We do want to try and keep these podcasts to this limit. We hope you come again, maybe, and speak to us again. And for anyone who was with us last week, we did have some tech problems. So, Sunil, you're a wonderful human person who sort of accepted we had problems and just said, I'll be back next week. And, you know, people of your stature in our industry, some of them are the kind of people who go, that's it, guys, you're never going to see me again. You know, so I just want to thank you for your humility as well.
No, I think the point is you folks are also trying. Look, nobody creates technical problems on purpose, right? We are all trying. There are some new things which are happening. So I think patience and empathy is key. And I think that is one of the core qualities which an agile coach should have. And I'm just trying my best, to be somebody who actually puts that into practice.
Shining example.
And that's all I've done. I think it's the least I could do.
You're a shining example. You're a shining example, sir. We all think that. Think that. Okay, I think it's time for the music and the man. Is that right, Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Sunil. Cheers, Raz. Cheers,
Ricardo. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
That's it for this week. You've been listening to the Agile Coaching Mastery Podcast, brought to you by the Agile Coaching Mastery crew. If you want to join the live recording or give us feedback, reach out to us on agileclub.club and look for the Agile Coaching Mastery Conversation. Or find us on Clubhouse, look for Agile Club. Join us next week for more fun and free thinking.